It's often said that anything can happen in the world of professional wrestling. Both Adrian Adonis and Dick Murdoch proved that this week in 1984, that very same statement is true. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Tyler Vance Rants. I am your host, Tyler Vance himself. It is May 26th, 1984. Last week in the National Wrestling Alliance, the biggest news coming out of there was that the newcomer, the Masked Outlaw, defeated Angelo Mosca Jr. to become the new NWA Mid-Atlantic Heavyweight Champion. The self-proclaimed exotic Adrian Street and his valet, Miss Linda, got a semblance of revenge against the boogie woogie maniac Jimmy Valiant. While in the World Wrestling Federation, Cyndi Lauper was promised to show up this week on Piper's Pit, while the Iron Sheik attacked and injured Cobra Corps Commando Sergeant Terry Daniels. The biggest news out of the National Wrestling Alliance, however, definitely had to be when NWA television champion Tully Blanchard left his color commentary cohort Johnny Weaver laying. Will Weaver be on commentary this week in the NWA? Well, let's tune in to Worldwide Wrestling to find out. To start things off, the former NWA Mid-Atlantic Heavyweight Champion Angelo Mosca Jr. is in singles competition against Gary Royal as the show begins, and immediately my question about Johnny Weaver is answered. No, he is not on commentary this week. David Crockett is calling the action by himself for right now and says that due to Tully Blanchard's actions last week, Johnny Weaver has been seriously injured. He gets what he deserves. Back to the action in the ring, I can tell that Angelo Mosca Jr. has been shaken visibly to the core after losing the Mid-Atlantic Heavyweight Championship to the Masked Outlaw. Speak of the devil and he shall appear. Here's the Masked Outlaw right now, and he heads down to the ring to cause a distraction from Mosca Jr., who falls right into it. Royal takes advantage of this and goes after Mosca like I've never seen anybody go after him before. Go, Gary, go! The Masked Outlaw grabs Angelo's leg at one point, allowing Gary Royal to get a near fall. So close! Unfortunately for Gary Royal, Angelo Mosca Jr. reverses the pin into one of his own and secures the 1-2-3. Backstage, David Crockett has the self-proclaimed exotic Adrian Street along with his valet Miss Linda ready for an interview, and immediately Street says that hitting the boogie woogie maniac Jimmy Valiant last week with a glove loaded with rocks was exactly what Jimmy Valiant deserved. Adrian then continues, saying that he is going to continue teaching Jimmy Valiant lessons until the boogie woogie man stops putting his nose into Adrian Street's business. The exotic one leaves Valiant with a warning.
But I'm here to teach him the lesson that ignorant pig should have been taught a long time ago. I will not put up with all this nonsense. It was loaded last time, now it's loaded in my fist. You poke your nose into my business again, and I'll punch it off your face, James Valiant.
You see, Adrian, you've already made a huge mistake. Valiant doesn't see warnings for what they are. Instead, he sees them as challenges. Therefore, you have doomed yourself already. The NWA World Tag Team Champions Don Kernodle and Ivan Koloff take on the team of Mark Fleming and Sam Houston in a non-title match next. I don't even need to mention how much of a well-oiled machine the Pride of the Carolinas and the Russian Bear are, as they demonstrated perfectly throughout the entire match. The cannon is enough to put their opponents away for the win, and so the champions then decide to teach their opponents a lesson by whipping them with the physical championship belts. Where's the competition? The man of the hour is here. NWA television champion Tully Blanchard has joined David Crockett on commentary, while David Crockett tries to snake his way into the fans' hearts by revealing again what happened to Johnny Weaver last week. Let's not forget, David, that Johnny Weaver is the one that started pushing Tully Blanchard's buttons. What is interesting about this footage, however, is that it's from an angle that we didn't necessarily get to see last week. If you recall, all I was able to show you was what we saw in the ring while the commotion happened on headset. Now we get a bird's eye view of what exactly went down.
Is there Weaver's talking back and forth? Hey, there you see it. backhand by Tully Blanchard.
The television champion defends his actions, saying that whenever he was a child and acted out, his father would punish him accordingly. That's all he was doing here with Johnny Weaver, who was definitely acting out. David Crockett then reveals just specifically what is ailing Johnny Weaver so badly, and apparently he was severely injured in the throat. Maybe that'll teach him not to use his mouth so irresponsibly. Blanchard then tries to comment on this, however David Crockett cuts him off unceremoniously and calls for commercial.
Now, we'll see what you can do in the ring. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back with more after this. Don't cut me off.
Ricky Steamboat is backstage next, and he says that being the current NWA United States Heavyweight Champion makes him #1 contender for the Nature Boy Ric Flair's NWA World Heavyweight Championship. No it doesn't. Didn't you have your chance and lose it, Ricky? What kind of scam are you trying to run here? By the way, what happened to your summer exercise programs? Have you already given up on the fat, out-of-shape losers that you're leaving behind? Despite being friends with the Nature Boy, Steamboat then says that he's going to stop at absolutely nothing until he becomes the NWA World Heavyweight Champion. This guy is full of himself. We're not done with interviews yet. Nope. David Crockett next has Pistol Pez Whatley out as his guest and simply wants to know what's on the Pistol's mind. Since he's not been given any specific question, the Pistol begins to absolutely unload on first NWA Television Champion Tully Blanchard before taking aim at the NWA World Tag Team Champions Don Kernodle and Ivan Koloff, but he's not done yet. The final round in his chamber is aimed squarely at the new NWA Mid-Atlantic Heavyweight Champion, the Masked Outlaw. Any other enemies you want to make in a single interview, Whatley? Pez simply says that the aforementioned men and their actions lately are unforgivable, and if given the opportunity, he'll take all of them down. To show that he means business, Pistol Pez Whatley takes on Kurt Von Hess right after the interview is complete. Pez's pure athleticism might actually be some cause for concern with regards to the men that he just called out in the interview. Whatley is incredibly impressive against Von Hess, despite having a significant weight and height disadvantage. A flying headbutt secures the win for Whatley. What the hell was that? A newcomer to Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling, Jesse Barr, takes on a more experienced wrestler in Bret Hart next. Barr has been trained under the tutelage of the Big Cat Ernie Ladd, and on what we're told on commentary, he was also on the 1980 men's Olympic team for the United States. Only one of those two things I'd put on my resume, and I'll let you figure out which one is which. Hart actually has a rare outing where he stands little to no chance against his opponent. It's also quite clear to me that Barr is definitely a protege of the Big Cat, as throughout the match he demonstrates a huge knowledge of different holds, employing them all against his opponent. One of these holds is the bear hug, a personal favorite of Ernie Ladd's. A forearm to the face of Bret Hart practically knocks the man unconscious, as Jesse Barr secures the win following a falling suplex. Backstage once again, David Crockett has Paul Jones with him this time, and Jones has a list with pretty much every member of Jimmy Valiant's militia, and he says that he and his army are going to start working their way through that list name by name, starting with Rufus R. Freight Train Jones. We're then shown footage of a match between Rufus R. Jones and Assassin Number 1, where the freight train constantly throughout the match tries to remove his opponent's mask, prompting Paul Jones to come to the rescue every time. After the match, Rufus R. Jones is beaten down by both Assassin Number 1 and his manager Paul Jones, prompting Sam Houston to come to the freight train's aid. This absolutely reeks of Angelo Mosca Sr.'s vigilante behavior bleeding through and affecting other people. You know, I personally can't wait for this war to be absolutely done and Paul Jones's army declared the victors so that we can start getting the National Wrestling Alliance back on track. The main event of Worldwide Wrestling is another tag team match, this time between the team of Doug Vines and Jeff Sword taking on Mark Youngblood and Brian Adidas. I bet Mark took Brian, the rookie, aside and had the gall to say, "Don't worry, kid, I'm going to show you what a professional wrestling match is all about in the ring because I'm Mark Youngblood, and that is what it's all about." Tully Blanchard, who has been on and off commentary all night, joins David Crockett for this match. And it's not long before David starts making the same jabs that Johnny Weaver did just last week and the week before and the week before, so much so that Blanchard had no other option than to shut him up. Did you want to have that happen to you too, David? Thankfully, the television champion is a class act and a professional, managing to steer David Crockett's attention back to where it matters, in the ring. Brian Adidas shines for his team, and if Mark didn't have the last name Youngblood, it really makes me wonder if he'd still have a career right now. Unfortunately, I can't really shine light on Brian Adidas and the great work that he does in the ring because David Crockett begins to throw an adult temper tantrum, speaking over Tully Blanchard anytime the television champion tries to talk about the match.
Flips him over.
David, you have a little bit of help out here, so
Drops down that leg.
don't interrupt me.
Stays with him.
I will tell you, if you people
Right now,
want to
they're
pay
in
me to
that
wrestle on
turn-
television,
Flip now,
I
flip
will.
Into that turnbuckle.
Really, David? A flying crossbody from the second rope secures the win for the team of Mark Youngblood and Brian Adidas. No thanks to Mark. The adult baby David Crockett is backstage once again with Paul Jones. Just like Mark Youngblood, if David's last name wasn't Crockett, due to his actions just recently on commentary, his career would be a thing of the past. Thankfully, David has enough sense to keep his mouth shut when it concerns the interview with Paul Jones. Jones continues to outline the names on the list that he is planning to work through with his army before Gary Hart and the new NWA Mid-Atlantic Heavyweight Champion, the Masked Outlaw, emerge to be interviewed next. Gary Hart says that despite what I feel about David, he has a lot of respect for Crockett and would never lie to him. Therefore, when he says that the Masked Outlaw has no relation whatsoever to Dory Funk Jr. outside of being trained by the man, David Crockett should take it as fact and consider the rumor squashed. The Pride of the Carolinas and the Russian Bear, both the NWA World Tag Team Champions at the moment, then emerged to finish off the episode of Worldwide Wrestling. They say that they recently hurt Jay Youngblood tremendously, so much so that he's had to take a couple of weeks off. The champions use Jay Youngblood as an example, and say that any team to step into the ring with them will face similar consequences. No wonder there's no tag team competition in Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling. Don Kernodle and Ivan Koloff are terrifying. With the drama of the National Wrestling Alliance over, let's tune into the World Wrestling Federation and its flagship show, Championship Wrestling, to see what awaits us there. Special Delivery Jones takes on Buzz Sawyer as the show begins, while Vince McMahon and Mean Gene Okerlund provide mostly professional commentary, as opposed to that of the NWAs. Sawyer is known as the Bulldog, and he definitely lives up to his moniker in this match, often getting down on all fours,
William Patterson College Recreation Center in Wayne, New Jersey. Good seat.
barking like a dog, and he even bites Jones at one point. An impressive suplex on SD Jones from the outside of the ring to the inside is offset by Sawyer screaming like an absolute banshee.
Look at this.
Before once more mauling his opponent and winning with a power slam for taking one more bite out of Special Delivery. This week's WWF update is so brief and features such a useless point of information, I'm going to save you the 5 minutes it took Vince McMahon to tell us that Andre the Giant has a restaurant that he owns in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. Lanny Kean is made to look like lean cuisine by Jimmy Superfly Snuka in the next match. Jimmy manages to control the opening parts of the match with a series of holds, and for someone that was named the 1983 WWF Magazine Rookie of the Year, the Superfly's energy seems to be absolutely zapped here. I didn't expect someone who's known as the Superfly and to fly to keep the match so slow and down to the mat. Following a backbreaker and a knee to the head on Kean, Jimmy Snuka finally does fly, heading to the top rope and hitting a splash on his opponent to get the 1-2-3. After losing to the returning Bob Backlund last week, Tiger Chung looks to test his mettle this week against the WWF Intercontinental Champion Tito Santana in a non-title match. Unfortunately for Lee, Santana always just seems to be one step ahead of the Korean, often outthinking him or anticipating his moves correctly. Overall, the match is very quick-paced, and that's no surprise coming from the likes of Santana. Even though the Intercontinental Champion can anticipate his opponent well, he's still not perfect. Tiger Chung manages to keep the match relatively even-paced, especially getting a near fall following several vicious kicks to Tito's head. Lee almost even scores another near fall following a tombstone pile driver. Tito Santana then proves just how championship caliber he is, mounting a comeback and even scoring the win following a flying forearm. I don't know about you, but I've been personally dying to see this week's edition of Piper's Pit. We get to see pop sensation and 80s icon Cyndi Lauper live. Roddy Piper is just as excited, if not more so, than I am, as he's dolled himself up to look just like Cyndi Lauper herself. The anticipation is killing me. Here comes Captain Lou Albano, and that means only one thing. Cyndi Lauper is right behind him. Except she's not. What the hell's going on? The captain says that Cyndi must have been delayed, and then turns his attention to the pop star's lawyer from last week, saying that he somehow must be involved in all this.
Dave Wolf, I bet you that Dave Dog is the one that told him not to come.
Piper is furious, saying no one makes a fool of him. This lawyer of Cyndi Lauper's is gonna pay. We are treated to a championship match next. The WWF World Tag Team Champions, Rocky Johnson and Tony Atlas, put their championships on the line against a relatively new team and newcomers to the WWF, but still very impressive. Both of them, Adrian Adonis and Dick Murdoch, challenge for the WWF World Tag Team Championships. For a bigger guy, Adonis can move relatively quickly around the ring. Despite this, Johnson gets the drop on the challenger and executes several hip tosses on him as the match gets underway. Not many men can say that they can stand toe-to-toe with Mr. USA Tony Atlas. However, one man that can is Dick Murdoch. The pair throw haymakers and headbutts at one another once they're both tagged in. As the match progresses, both teams demonstrate tremendous teamwork, and it's really anyone's guess as to who's going to take the WWF World Tag Team Championships home. Chaos gains control of the match as Rocky Johnson and Tony Atlas focus on Dick Murdoch, who's battling to try to get back into the ring. Adonis manages to sneak behind Johnson while all this is happening, rolling him up into a schoolboy pin.
Look at this! Oh my! From behind, Rocky hooked by Adonis, gets three!
We have new WWF World Tag Team Champions. Let this be a lesson to you, Atlas and Johnson, and to anyone else out there that considers themselves a veteran. Never turn your back on your opponents. The main event of WWF Championship Wrestling and the week sees Cowboy Bob Orton take on Billy Travis one-on-one. Orton doesn't even break a sweat in this match, instead taking the opportunity to demonstrate just what he can do to the live audience as well as us at home, before mercifully putting Travis and the week away following a win with a superplex. Anything can happen in the world of professional wrestling. I opened the episode up with this, and I'm going to end with it too. We witnessed this in full effect when David Crockett acted like a baby, throwing a temper tantrum on commentary against his cohort and color commentator, the NWA television champion Tully Blanchard. We witnessed it when Cyndi Lauper no-showed Piper's Pit. You can guess where things in sports are going to go based on patterns and statistics. You can guess that a relatively established team of champions is going to easily beat a new team that we've barely seen. But that's just it. You can only guess. That's all you can do, is guess. Because just like when Rowdy Roddy Piper says that he's changed the questions when you thought you had the answers, professional wrestling changes the outcome just when you think you've guessed the win. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Tyler Vance Rants. Don't forget to like the video, hit the bell so you're always notified when a new episode is released, and subscribe so you never miss one. You can also follow me on social media, where I hope you'll share the video with your family and friends. That's it for me for this week. I'll see you next week. So long for now. Adrian then continues, saying that he's going to continue teaching Adrian himself. No, he's going to teach Jimmy Valiant a lesson. Paul Jones, along with Assassin number 1. Nope, just Paul Jones. No Assassin today. Since the attention is back within the squared circle, we get to witness some of the highest qualling, and gets the win for the win.